This is Lori, and as Rebecca said, this web session is going to be on job management change orders. We will be waiting until the end to answer questions, and if we don't get to all the questions, then we'll be emailing you with whatever information we can provide. Okay, so let's get going. What is a change order? So once a job is locked down, the only way to create a change in a job, which would affect either the revenue or the costing in the job, is to create a change order. These could be changes to install charges, recurring lines, material, or commissions. And change orders can be positive or negative, and they provide a very clear view of the changes made in the job. Only users with specific user group permissions have the ability to create change orders. So a lot of people ask, why would you want to lock down a job? And the biggest reason is you want to preserve that original job just as it was created, based on the sale and based on the purchase order. There are two main areas in the Sedona setup tables which affect change orders. So I'm going to switch now to my SedonaOffice database, and we can look at the setup tables here. Okay, so the first one is going to be your user group rights. I think most of you know that every user is assigned to a user group, and the user group determines what rights you have in the application. Under the user group setup, in job management, there is one for change order access. If you have change order access, then you can create change orders. The other area is under your setup tables, under job management, and it's going to be your job types. So I'm going to open up one of the job types here. Every job type is associated with specific tasks. Each one of these tasks has the ability to lock a job down. So at each task level, you'll see there is a lock yes or no flag. If it's set to a lock equals yes, when that task is approved, then that's what's going to lock the job down. So we generally see it at two different areas. Either people are going to lock it down at the initial review, or they're going to lock it down at the next phase, or at the phase which has to do with ordering parts. Once parts are ordered, they feel comfortable, and they'll lock the job down. If you don't lock a job down with any task here set to yes, the job will lock down when the last task is approved. Now, individuals, if they have the rights, can, or users, individual users, can actually lock down an individual job. They could go in and either create a new task and set the lock flag to yes, or they could take an existing task and they could change it to a lock equals yes. But if you want to ensure that you're consistent in locking down your jobs, we recommend that you set it up at the job type in your setup tables right here. There are two types of change orders, positive and negative. Some people might call it an add versus a manual reversal. So I thought we'd look at a job here and look at how a change order is going to affect the job. I have a job here that has an install charge of $2,500. It has parts. It doesn't have any recurring. On my job costing screen, you can see that I have an install amount again of $2,500. And in my tasks, this first task had a flag to lock the job down, and it has been approved. If I want to create a change in this job, I can't do it unless I create a change order. So if I come into my install charges and I say I want to add something, the application simply won't let me. Instead, if I have the rights, I'm going to go to my tools. I'm going to find the Add Change Order. Here is where you'll see the difference between a positive and a negative. This is for the manual reversal for a negative change order, but on this first one, we'll go ahead and create a positive change order. The only field here that's required, that's mandatory, is the sold date field. But I always recommend that you put some kind of a note in here. So maybe I'm going to add install line and recurring, and I could put whatever reason there. Once I click the apply button, sorry about that, I now have these tabs showing up down below here, my install, my recurring, my materials, and my commission. So let's say I wanted to add an install line. I can come in, I can choose an install line, I can add the dollar amount, save it, and apply. I can come back to the same change order now, and I can add a recurring. The recurring items that I'm choosing, and actually the install lines, if you have them set at the job type, where you're limiting which ones can be used on this particular job type, it will use the same rules here. I have to create the bill cycle, the amount, but I don't have to put the cycle start and date in yet. Okay? So now I have a change order that's a positive change order. It's going to affect my install amount and my recurring. If I look at my sales summary now, I have an install of $3,000, and I have a monitoring charge down below for $50. If I come back and look at my job costing screen, I have an install charge of $2,500, and I have a change order of $500. So it's a very, very clear view of what has changed in this job. Anytime I want to, I can go back and look at the details. It'll show me right here. It almost looks like a mini job within the job. It's got its own install icon with the amount and the recurring. Okay? I can also create a negative change order. So in this case, I'm going to look at my material list. All of my parts have been issued. You can see my quantities here and my issued quantities over here. So let's say that someone needed to return one of the motion detectors. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing a negative change order, if it is on material, my change order is going to take care of changing the quantity in my job, but it's not going to return that part. So if you're doing a negative change order for material, it's actually a two-step process. I'm going to come back into my tools. I'm going to add a change order, but now I'm going to select this manual reversal. Again, sold date is the only mandatory field, but I'm going to put a note in here that I'm returning 1 AP 633A. Once I click the manual reversal, it's going to expect negative quantities. I'm going to come into my materials. It's going to show me my material list. Here's everything that was on this job. So that's one of the big changes between a negative and an add or a positive change order. A negative is only going to give me what was already issued to this job. I can't make any changes. I have to make it based on what was existing in this job so far. So in this case, I'm going to change the quantity and put a -1. So I'm taking one part away from these 3 AP 633As. Okay? But if I go to my parts reconcile, you can see that it's not reconciling. The job should only have 2, but I actually have 3, which is why I have to go and return that part. I'm going to go to my issue parts, open up my issue, click on the return to stock, and I'm simply going to change the values down here. I'm not going to do anything with these, not do anything with this one, but I'm returning one here. Once I have them all set, I'm just going to click Apply. Now if I look at my parts reconcile, my job quantity and my issue quantity are the same. If I come to my job, I only have 2 parts on there for the AP633A. Everything has been changed in the job. Hold on one second. The next thing we're going to talk about is the new change order approval process, which is coming out this summer. What this is going to do, it's going to provide an approval process for adding change orders once a job is locked down. Now, in your Sedona setup tables, there's going to be an option at the Job Management Setup Processing that you are going to either choose to use the change order approval process or you're not. If you do, it's global. It means that every time you have a change order, you have to go through the approval process. If you don't check it, it'll operate just as it has in the past. There'll also be a new user group permission, which is to approve change order requests. These are the people that are going to have the rights to approve them. The job tree is going to look a little different. When you go into the job tree in the Tools section, instead of seeing the change order, you're going to see a request change order. It will look very similar to the other screen in that the only sold date, the only mandatory date field is going to be the sold date. But once you save that, it is going to look a little different. You're going to have a data entry screen with 2 separate tabs, an Add to Job and then Reversals. Each one is going to have 3 sub-tabs underneath it. So you're going to have Install, Recurring, and Parts under each one. From there, they operate very similar to how the change orders work now. If it's an add, you can add any new lines. If it is a negative or a reversal, you're only going to have the existing quantities and lines to choose from. It's going to expect negative quantities again. Once you complete the change order, the user is going to have the following options. They can cancel it, save it, close it. They can submit for approval, or if they're a user that has the change order approval rights, they can go ahead and approve the request. Within the job queue, you will see a new button. And this new button is going to enable you to view and see only jobs with pending change order requests. If you double-click on the line item or click the Open button, it will take you right to the job where the authorized user can then approve the change order. Now, one difference in this is that in one change order, you're going to be able to create a positive and a negative change order all at the same time. The other difference is going to be, I don't know if you noticed, but there was only 3 sub-tabs. Install, Recurring, and Materials. There was no commission. If you create any of those other three, you will have the ability to also choose the commission once you're into that tab. So this is going to be coming out. I don't have all the information on it yet, all the details of when it's going to be ready, but it's going to be ready this summer, and there'll be more information coming. All right, so I do see we have a couple questions here, or at least one. Hold on a second. So someone said, I have a question about the job module in general. When the last task is approved and the job is completed, some systems do not populate in the customer record. Is this a setting or a process issue? Could be both. So let me show you something first. Go back into my Sedona office. When you first create a job, on your job system here, there's a choice. You're either creating a new system, or if not, there's a little icon over to the right here in which you can choose an existing system. If you choose an existing system, it will update the information in the system. If you have it as a new system, it will build the new system. Also, at the end, when you're closing out a job, you're going to get a list of all the materials. And if you choose not to move those materials over to the job, they won't. So it's more or less either updating or creating your equipment list. If that didn't help you, then give me a call. Is there any way to add the job costing tab under the change order? That's another question that's coming in. I'm not sure why you would want the job costing tab under the change order. Remember that the job costing here on the main screen is always going to update. So the only thing I'm thinking is you're trying to see what the difference was in the job costing before a change order and after a change order. And no, it's not going to populate there in that job costing screen, in the change order screen. But, for example, my material changed, my amount. When I took that part off, it reduced it from what was in my WIP account. Another question was, do we have to manually put the additional cost into the job costing screen? No, it'll take care of all that for you. You can see when we created that change order for the $500, it brought it right over into my screen. When I took the part off, it reduced it from my WIP. I also added my recurring, and it came right over here into my job costing screen. Yes, the PowerPoint will be available. So someone else is asking about WeSuite. I'm not real sure of the WeSuite change orders. I would have to talk to Tracy about it. And I'm not sure exactly what the question is. So let me look over the question a little bit more, get with Tracy, and then we'll give you a call back because I've got your name here. I think that's it. I appreciate all of you showing up for the webinar. Like Rebecca said, it will be posted. The PowerPoint will be available as well. And give us a call if there's anything else that you need. All right, thank you very much.